Hello again, and welcome to another spooky project. We're still working on the same series that we started on, and now we are on one that I consider a vampire theme. So, if we look over here into Photoshop, we see our model, and I was able to capture at the right moment when I had her to lift her hair up real quick and throw it back, and caught it right at the moment where it was just straight up. And also, when she was doing the pose, I told her, I said, try to like look like you're screaming or something like that. So she did that, and turned out pretty good. And I started looking at it, and I started thinking to myself, this kind of, you remember the Lost Boys? I mean, this is really showing my age here, but it was one of the great '80s movies, vampire movies. Um, Awesome movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But anyway, there's a scene where they go down into sort of like a cave area or whatever, and they're going to kill some of the vampires, and they're actually hanging upside down. And so I thought this would be a cool shot to maybe put her into, where I actually turn her upside down since her hair is straight up. So anyway, I started looking at the image in Photoshop, and then I was like, I wonder if I could change some things, because like if she's hanging upside down, the dress she had on would definitely, due to gravity, would be um, too loose, and it would be falling down. So I started playing with some of the tools in AI, and just to give you an idea, like this is what I ended up with, and this is before. So how I got that was made a duplicate of the layer, so Control J, and all I did was I did it in sort of two different takes. So I chose underneath her chest area, down the dress, and I chose a little bit of overlap here to give AI enough room to work. And then go up to Edit, Generative Fill, and I'm going to put on here, like before I didn't put anything at all, and it was actually pretty good. It actually made it look like she was wearing like gym clothes. I mean, it was really, really weird, but it looked right. Anyway, so what I'm gonna do here is just try something cool. I'm gonna put in uh, Queen of the Damned, and see what we get. Generate. Should give us 3 different variations. Yep. Okay, so we got that variation, we got that variation. It's weird, but and then we got that one, which looks all right. But I didn't like any of those. So you can always hit the regenerate button right here. So if you just hit generate again, it'll give you 3 more options. All right. So then we can go through the 3 it gave us. Still not digging it. So I think the reason why I got what I got right here in the end right here, where it's more form fitting, the dress anyway, is when I first did it, I kept with the form fitting gym looking clothes, because what I was thinking was is I could put her legs more closer together, and then when I flip her around, you'll have a better form of her figure. But then I decided, well, let's see what AI can do, and so I chose the area again, but this time I chose the new area, which was the more form fitting, and then I got something like this. So I think that's the reason why I got something that was like this, is more form fitting and just closer to her figure, was because I started off with something that was already closer to her figure. So I believe that's the reason why we're not getting anything that we want right now. I'm gonna hit regenerate again and just see what we get. But but yeah, I think that's the reason why I got what I got in the first place. Okay. I mean, it looks like I'm going to keep getting like dresses, I guess. So I'm just going to choose one for right now. I'll choose that one. And I'm going to collapse it. So what that means is I'm going to take that layer and the original layer that I have of her, control click, select both those, and then control E to merge them. Now the next thing I did is I selected just the top. So I wanted to see if I give it enough room. So I grabbed a little bit of the arms and then went right around in here, and then right under the neck, because I figure, it might actually want to put jewelry or something like that on her. And then I went back to edit, generative fill, and again I put in Queen of the Damned. Oops. And then hit generate. Let's see what this gives us. Should be more form fitting because it's already, that's what we have. Okay, so we got that, and we got this. That doesn't look right. That's kind of cool, I guess. But you can hit regenerate. Let's see if we get some other choices. If you don't like something but you liked what you got at the beginning, you can always go back here, because they keep progressing upwards. So you got 3 and 3 and 3, so you can keep go back and choose an older version of something that you liked. So yeah, I'm gonna hit generate one more time and see what we get. Okay, that's actually not bad. Not bad. Kind of like that one right there a little bit more. So anyway, if you liked it, you can just control select that bottom layer there, the original, and then hit control E to merge those two layers into one. Now something to take note, AI, especially AI in Photoshop or even in Midjourney, it looks good from a distance. If you were going to do something and wanted a lot of detail and you were going to be like this close, don't expect it to look real. It's not going to look real. So from a distance is fine. Not only that, I know that the artwork that I'm putting her into, is another AI generated background. So it's the details and the way it looks is going to match that. So it should blend better and look okay. So I'm going to keep to the original here. I wanted that pop of red. I'm going to delete this one layer. And I'm going to make a duplicate of it just in case I want to go back. So I'm going to hit Control J. One thing I want to do before going any further, I know that she's going to be hanging upside down. I know from my camera perspective, I'm probably shooting around middle to or lower of the chest area. That's where my camera is, and relation to everything else. And I'm using, I think it's a 35 millimeter. So what I want to do is I know that I'm gonna hang her upside down, so into a scene. So I want to try to sort of fake a little bit of perspective, just a little bit, just to see if I can't make it, because I know in my head how I'm going to have her turned, but I just wanted to fake a little bit of that sort of perspective distortion. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to image rotation, and I'm going to flip vertically. Okay, now this is where my brain starts to get a little skewed here. And to be honest, it might actually be better to flip it back, but no, I need to try to do it this way. Anyway, so once I've done that, go to filter, camera raw filter. And now, if you come down here to geometry, you can click on the little vertical thing right here, the little vertical slider, and you can move it one way or another. So this is kind of what I had in mind right here, is a little bit of this distortion, and then let's see, I think it's aspect ratio or aspect. Yeah, I wanted to stretch it a little bit, and then let's see, I'm going to scale it some. So I'm trying to look at the overall like pose and everything too. I'm trying to think, is when she's really upside down, that this is going to look close to where it needs to be. I think that's pretty close to how I imagine it right there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now I'm going to crop this. I'm going to crop this image because some of it is on the outside, and I just want to kind of keep things clean. So I'm going to select all pretty much, and then go to image, crop. Now it's cut out everything else that's on the outside, so we don't have to mess with that anymore. While I'm cleaning her up, like her skin, I don't like I don't like working in this way. So I'm gonna flip it back for now. Image rotate and vertical. Okay, so that way, just it makes my brain work less hard. So I'm gonna come in here and start cleaning up. She has a little like scar or something, scratch, maybe a cat or something, I don't know, on her arm. I actually think I'm gonna leave that. Kind of just adds to the whole vampire thing, right? So right now, gonna start cleaning up her face. I'm actually want to, before I do anything, I want to keep this original layered. So I'm gonna hit Control J, make a duplicate, and then I'm going to start using the patch tool to clean up the face of any acne or any blemishes or anything like that. And to be honest, a lot of people ask me, well, why don't you use the healing brush? You can. It really depends on how close you are. Like right now, I probably could just use the healing brush and be completely fine with that. If you're closer to the subject, the healing brush to me is not the one to use. And the reason why I don't like to use it is because it doesn't really provide the skin detail. Like if you use it enough, you'll see that it kind of muddies it, or it uses like a noise or some kind of noise pattern, but it really doesn't make it look like skin. If you use the patch tool, you're selecting the area that you want to fix, and when you drag off, and it's sampling actual skin, and it looks more like skin in the end. So there's your little pro tip. Now I don't want to get rid of everything because I have to be careful about what I'm getting rid of, because some of it is actually wrinkle detail from the face that she's making. So I have to be aware of what is what. I think we're getting there. I don't know if that really is. Nah, I'm gonna leave that, I think. I may actually, I don't know, I may actually try to go back and like do some more contouring uh, later on to really kind of bring out the wrinkle details a little bit more in her face. Okay. I think that's about it. Control D to deselect. To clean up some areas here too. For cleanup, which really wouldn't matter. I'm going to be doing a mask anyway, but if you had to clean that up, you can go to your um, clone stamp tool. Make sure you've got a fairly hard edge. So, and come over here off to the side and click, and then just start painting. Something like that. All right. So the next thing is, like since I have a lot of different processes that I do, and during them I have to think whether or not to skip some or to do some, and a lot of the times, like it depends on again how far away the subject is, how detailed their skin is, and all of that. She's pretty far back, so my whole process for cleaning of the skin and everything, I may actually not go, full throttle into. I know that I'm going to add teeth, sharp fangs. I guess that's something I can probably do. So I did create an image inside of Midjourney, and I'd created like this one right here with some fangs. It's not exactly the angle that I wanted, so I had to go back and try to find some really good images of some sharp teeth, and that wasn't like extremely easy, what I was trying to get. So here's one of the images I was able to sort of get, and looking at her mouth compared to this one, I'm looking at lighting. It's fairly subdued because it's more directional as we're up above, so the light's not actually hitting her teeth, but the lighting here is hitting this side of the mouth and not so much this side. So I might take like that fang and try to work it in. So when I go over here, select, sort of roughly select it. Okay, right. Edit, copy, come back over here, edit, paste. There it is. Let's see if I can use this or not. Really looks too dark for my tastes. Yep. Let's go to the move tool by hitting V. So it would be around there. I don't really like that. It's too, I don't know what it is. It's not going to work. So there's another way that I can do this. I don't really like doing it, but I feel like I have no choice. So I'm going to grab her existing teeth here, and then I'm going to as my move tool is selected, I'm going to hit Control T, and then I'm going to come inside the box a little bit, and then right click and warp. Now I can start to pull the tooth down. Hopefully into a fang. And then hit enter. And then Control D to deselect. So the reason why I don't like doing this too much is when you start to distort it, it kind of loses a little bit of its like tooth texture detail. But we are not going to be up so close, so we're not going to see a whole lot of that. So anyway, go to the next one. Go to select tool, choose this tooth. Actually, you know what? Hit Control G. I don't need to go too far outside of the tooth in the dark area. Alright, hit V on the keyboard to your move tool, then Control T and to transform it, and inside the box right click, warp, and just grab these two dots at the bottom. I think we were like somewhere way down here on the other one, somewhere around there. I'm going to hit enter and then Control D, deselect, and we're pretty close as far as distance. So yay, she's got sharp teeth. So we didn't need to Photoshop teeth in. So yeah, that works. Works pretty good. Alright, what's next? What do we need to do next? I really think the next thing to do is to probably cut her out from the background. Another thing that we can do is go into our crop tool, cropping down the image, and hit enter. Then this way we kind of don't need all that extra space, and so waste of space, and makes your file size is bigger. And then save that. So we've done a little bit of work. We want to save it. All right. Next thing we want to do is cut it out. So pretty easy. Well, I say easy. Haven't got in there yet. See what's going to happen. Go to our select tool. Hit select subject. Okay, did a pretty good job, but we're gonna have to go in and refine it. So hit select and mask up here at the top. Actually, I need to close that and then go back to select and mask here. So once we're in select and mask, we need to zoom in, kind of tidy it up a little bit, make sure everything is selected good. Use the absolute brush right here, scale it down, If you hit Alt on the keyboard, it changes to a little minus inside of it, and that's just painting away, taking away. And if you hit the space bar, it changes to a hand, then you can click and drag, so you can move around a lot quicker. Alright, looks like it needs a little bit of work here, around the hands, maybe a little bit around the arm there. Okay, so, and then of course the hair. We'll zoom in here a little bit, go back to the full selection tool here. I'm going to hit minus, paint outwards, and then easy to come back and just do that. Clean that edge up a little bit more around the skin. Alright. While I'm doing this, I'm already thinking about things like how I'm going to colorize her. I've been looking at vampire pictures and everything, and you know, they have a particular look. You know, they're not living, so they don't have warm blood coursing through their veins, so the skin is going to look different. So we have to try to think about how we're going to colorize them, and I already have an idea of how I'm going to pretty much attack that. Okay. Once you think you have a good selection done, the next thing to do is change the way you're seeing the mask here. And what I mean by that is, go up here to this little drop down, and of course you can also learn the shortcuts if you want to. They have these letters next to them, but I always use V and K, so you can see that you got a little bit missing there. That elbow looks a little weird, you got a little notch there, so I'm going to turn back to V. Okay, and then kind of paint away a little bit of that. Clean that up, so go back to K. I'll look around, make sure everything looks good. Make sure we got a nice clean selection all the way around. Nothing funky standing out. No, nothing outside chosen. Okay. Gotta do the hair, of course. Alright, go back to V. Alright. So now we need to do a selection around the hair. The hair looks pretty good already, but it's got to find, I want to go back and say K and V. So if I do K and V back and forth, I'm looking at all the fine lines here. We're missing a little bit there, but it's not that big of a deal. This right here I might need to improve on. That looks pretty decent. So I'm going to improve this area right here, and then this area right down here on the neck. So I always call this the hairbrush. It's not really what it is, but it's just the refined edge brush. Scale it down a good bit, and then come in here and just paint away right in this area. let go. And then there's always going to have to be some cleanup, so I want to do the absolute brush here. Paint in where I need it. Right here on the hand too. Okay, and then K, V, K, V. Okay, and then do the same thing down here. Choose the refine brush and come in and paint over this hair. Let go. Choose the absolute brush and then kind of refine it a little bit. Little piece sticking out there, not sure what that was. And go back to K. It's kind of chosen it. V, K, V, K. I think we're good there. So we'll zoom out, look at everything overall. I think it looks good. And then we want to make sure that, you know, this always changes. Not always. So if you've never opened this window before, your settings may not be the same as mine. But once you use this one time and you click on this little checkbox right here, remember settings, it should always pop up with the settings from before. So you can play with things if you want to try it out, or just watch other YouTube videos on how to use it. But the only things that I really change is the feather. I go 0.6 pixels, and the shift edge I do a -3, just kind of closes in on it a little bit more. I try to do that so that I don't have as much green spill, so any green that's going to come over with the cutout. And then if you'll do the drop down here on the output settings, choose new layer with layer mask, and then hit OK. And if I turn off all these bottom layers, if you click and just drag down while still holding the mouse, you'll make all the layers disappear or reappear. It's kind of just a quick but cool little trick. Click and drag. So we're looking at it. Everything looks pretty good. Not seeing too much green in the hair, just slightly, but we can get rid of that with a color adjustment layer, selective color. Everything else looks pretty good. We have some weirdness right here. Oh yeah, okay. So this is kind of a good thing to go over. When we made our selection of the teeth and actually moved that whole thing, the whole cutout, it moved everything. So if we were moving just one layer, we weren't moving all the layers beneath it. So what happens is we have a little bit of a cutout here and a little bit of a movement, so we need to refill that back in. How do you do that? Well, it's pretty easy. If you'll just turn on all the layers beneath and then select the one beneath the top here and the bottom by hitting shift and then click, and then if we hit Control J and we just made duplicates, and now we need to collapse them into one, so then we hit Control E. Alright, turn off all the ones beneath it. Alright, the next thing is to take this completely away. So we want to, as far as what I'm trying to say is make a inverted mask. So this is the mask tool down here. If we hit Alt and then click it, it produces a black mask, so that means everything goes away. So now if we choose a brush, make it a hard edged brush, somewhere around 80-90%. Change the opacity up, 20% is fine, 40% flow is fine. We want to make sure that we're painting white. White will reveal, black hides. And then we want to hit the open and close brackets, which is next to the P key. That scales the brush. If you don't want to use this method of hitting the of making it go up and down, you can go up here to the brush and rotate, mess with the size tool here. But just go pretty low, and then zoom in a little bit more. Not too much. Go back to the hit B on your keyboard, and it'll go back to the brush tool. I'm gonna scale mine down just a tad bit more, and then I'm gonna start painting. Just make sure you fill it in. Okay. Alright. Once that is done, you can basically merge that little bit of color information with the teeth. You can merge this with the top layer. So if you hit Control and then select the top layer, you can merge those together with a Control E. However, I'm trying to think about this. I don't want to lose my mask, so because I'm going to use this again later. This mask right here is for her complete cutout, so I don't want to lose it. So what I'm going to do is, this will make sense in a minute. If I hit Control J, I just made a copy, right? We want to take this layer and this layer and merge them together. So I'm going to hit Control E. Okay. So now we did Control E, but our mask is gone, right? So if we just click on the mask here and then click again and hold it and then drag it down, and then when this is illuminated, we just drop it, and then we can delete this top layer because we only needed the mask. We don't really need the whole layer. So now we have the mask back. So we have the mask with the now merged teeth layer with her. So we're good. All right. So what is next? We need to, for me, I think we need to bring her into the scene finally. Now I made a lot of different backgrounds, and sometimes I think some backgrounds look awesome, but they don't fit. Like when you're thinking about being a director or like a movie, you're thinking about a scene, and certain scenes aren't going to work, certain scenes will. So the question is even though you have this awesome badass looking background, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for your model. Yeah, it looks cool, but like if you're trying to tell a story, not just slapping a background in there just for shits and giggles. If you're really trying to work on something and make a story, sometimes too much is just too much. If you've got this cool background, it's got all this detail and stuff, it's like, well, she's the main focal point. And so if you've got all this other stuff in the background, yeah, it may look cool, but you're losing her. She's competing with what's in the background. You're just trying to tell a story. You're trying to, but make it about her. And so, for me, my personal preference, I try to like have balance, and not not be too showy, I guess. So anyway, that's just my personal perspective, but so I like to keep things simple and balanced if I can. So as I was looking at backgrounds for this, um, I was looking at backgrounds, different backgrounds, and now I saved a bunch for you guys, so you have a bunch to go through and download and use for other composites as you may do. But this for this particular one, it's going to be a very narrow pick that I actually use for her. Um, for what I first envisioned, I couldn't get the exact image I was looking for. Now I can probably construct it um, and show how I do that, but I did find a couple that I thought would work. So I was thinking like a confined room or a confined space where it's just, she's hidden in this sort of small dark crevice of either it be a tomb, a crypt, um, a, a tunnel, cave, or something, like a dark corner of a room, up in the corner. So I'm going to just bring in two or three backgrounds and then see basically which one she fits better into. And so this one, and one more, I think. Let me look. Just one more. It's a tough decision. Maybe that one? I don't know. Look at maybe one more. Sorry, I get really picky when I'm looking at this stuff. I'm like, I don't want to just haphazardly pick one. So I'm looking at also perspective and lighting. So I'm going to open these. Now, granted, when I actually find one that'll suit my needs, I'm going to go on to my the replicate upres AI tool online, and I'm going to upres the image, so and then use that one for the one I'm going to use. So first of all, let's look through them. This shot, one, it's pretty bright. It's also got a single light coming from the left side, so I don't necessarily think that one's going to work. This one's got a top down light, which I think can work. She's going to be hanging down, so she'd be blocking this fixture in the middle, so it might work. This one I feel like could work. But I don't know. I feel like we are in this particular shot. It feel like it's a really super wide angle lens, and I feel like we're really low because we're like eye level with the horizon line right here, and the chairs are pretty low. So I don't think this one would fit, especially with the clothes that she's wearing. This is a little too drab. So we'll close that one down. So now we're left with this one and this one. So this one, she could be hanging down, but realistically, if you're looking at it and thinking about it, you can't really see the ceiling, but you can imagine like it's probably pretty high, like way up there. So that's one thing you got to think about. Like, how is she hanging if she is hanging upside down? This one seems pretty confined and could work. There's a top down light, looks kind of cool. These could be her trophies. Um, hey, whatever helps you sleep at night. I guess you can, instead of counting sheep, you can count skull heads. So I guess from here, like just looking at these two images, the best thing to do is just grab her layer. It's selected. Go to edit. Actually, let's see, one more thing we can do before we do anything else is go to image rotate, flip vertical, and then edit. Since the layer is still selected, edit, copy, come over here to this background, hit edit, paste, and we need to scale her down, so choose the move tool, then hit Control T and scale it down, bring her up. How high do we want to do this? This is actually a tough one. I don't really work in this kind of perspective as far as doing stuff upside down like this. It also kind of twists my brain a little bit. So I think she could be a tad bit larger, somewhere around there maybe, and enter. That's that's pretty doable. Now we can go over here and then hit edit, paste. And again, Control T to scale. This one, like I said, this one may be a little bit weird to kind of put her into because the ceiling's up so high. And then hit enter if that's where we want to place her. Now, being that she's this large, could sort of make you think that there's another part of the ceiling that's a little bit lower, closer to the camera. So anyway, looking at the two images, I like how you've got some red down here at the bottom, whatever those are. I guess those are fruit or something, bat fruit, I don't know, but the red ties together nicely with the dress. We don't have any red in the background here, but this kind of feels better maybe than this one. It feels more confined and like she could actually fit in this environment better. And I don't think I want to drop her down any further. I think right there is. Yeah, it feels weird if she's like too far down. Like it's more intimidating if you're closer to eye levels. So maybe about there. All right. I think this is the one we're going to work with. So I'm going to close this one. Nope. And we're going to use this one. So I'm going to go over and upscale this background image, and I'll be back in a second. Alright, so after getting some images upscaled, there's something I'm going to do. There's two different variations, two versions basically. I have one that was up-res by Replicate, which is the AI tool online that I like using. And then there is another one that I upres, but using Midjourney, um, its upres tool, so it can upscale something by like 4 times. But of course, replicate can upscale by like 10 times. Um, and it's kind of weird. They're both AI tools, and sometimes they add detail where there was none. But each has its own unique properties. And what's pretty cool is it's really kind of hard to choose, like, which one do I want to use, which one. Well, why not use both? So uh, in that regard, let's see, I think replicate is going to be a whole lot bigger. Yeah. So what I want to do is I want to fit the replicate version and scale it down to fit inside this one, which is the one that Midjourney created. If and to kind of like show you just, I guess, some differences of what does what. So this one is the replicate, and then this one is the Midjourney. The differences are a good bit. You can actually tell. So in photography, you have uh, like some softness to an image. So I kind of look at this version, which is the Midjourney version. I kind of look at it as like it softens. It's still large, but it softens the detail. Replicate, which is up to 10 times, it it looks like it's kind of adding a lot of sharpening to it. So there's a lot more detail in it, but at the same time you kind of lose. I think you lose a little bit of that realism because it doesn't have that sort of lens, camera lens breathing and softness. So what I like to do is try to add the two together and then balance between the two. So in order to do that, we need to take the large one, which is the replicate one because it's 10 times, bring it down, just click and hold and drag it down, and then click inside of it, click and then drag it over here and drop it. And we can close this layer off. So now we've got it here. We just need to rescale it. So they're both the same size. So if we just fit it in there, it'll be exact. So Control T to scale it, and we want to scale it down. What I would do is scale it to where you can see all 4 corners of your tool here. Bring it up. Okay, so now just grab that, and it'll snap to the top, and it's also snapped to the left side here. So now if we just grab this side but hit shift on the keyboard, then we can independently scale that, and then if you get close to the edge, it'll snap. Do the same thing, hold shift, grab this bottom one, drag it down, it snaps, and let it go, and then hit enter. Now we are completely on top of each other and exact. So how do we blend this together? What do we do? I found that going to, I think it was darken, or I try to figure out which one it was. I think it was even darken or darken color. Darken. Either one of those. So if you can kind of tell, if you look at certain areas, like look where there's detail, edges where the highlights are, or just some detail here. If we turn it off, then back on, off, on, you can see how it kind of pops the details in certain areas. The next thing I like to do is, once I've done that, set it to darken, I can go over here to the opacity and like sort of lighten it up or bring it back down. So that's 0%. I'm looking at the details, how much I want them to pop. So I'm going to go to about right there, which is 54. So we'll just go to 50%. So now if I turn it on and off, you can see what it does. So now I feel like I have a balanced balanced image between these two variations. So once that's done, we can collapse it together into one layer. So hit Control, select the bottom one, and then hit Control E to merge, and we are good to go. Now this image is the biggest that I'm ever going to, as far as like the whole comp as a whole, this is going to be the biggest that I of the image that I ever make, right? So we can come over here and take her layer. Now I may have to go back to the original because, yeah, actually let's do that. Let's go back to the original. I'm going to copy this one, edit, copy, and then come back over to this project file and hit edit, paste. And then we're going to, I might scale her up a little bit, or scale the background image down some. Actually, yeah, let's do that instead. So I'm going to delete this layer, and I'm going to go to image size, and then change this to inches. I'm going to choose 300 dpi because I want it for print. I'm going to change the size of this image down to, like, say 30, and because you could even scale this up to 36 or if you wanted to later, and it still retain pretty much all the detail. So I'm going to hit OK. So we're at 30 by 20 at 300 dpi. Hit OK. And then I'm going to copy her layer again, bring it over here, hit edit, paste. She's super small, so I am going to increase her scale some. So I'm going to hit Control T, grab an edge, pull it up, I think we were about here. About right there. Okay. Pause this for just a second. Alright, so one thing I wanted to do to sort of check things, see what my balance is, and make sure my composition is eye appealing. I brought in a grid. So again, grids used by old master painters to sort of figure out composition and to make a pleasing image to the eye. So overlaying this, it looks pretty good. Like everything looks like it's kind of matching up. So we have a major line going across here. There's a couple of them right here that sort of meet the angle of her arms, and then you have these two major lines right here, this one and this one, that sort of match the angle of these arms. There's like a lot of areas right here that match up, like anytime you have a sort of a intersection, like a crossed area, that's a kind of like a rule of thirds, like where certain areas are most important to like put the the subject of importance in those areas, especially like the eyes and stuff. So anytime you have a crossed area, this is an important area, like a focal point. Like if that's where you wanted your focus to go to, that's where you'd try to put it, is somewhere in between these cross points. And so you've got sort of like a cross point here, top of the head and the hair, which these angles right here fit nicely with the head inside of it. Then you have a cross section here, which kind of like close to the sharp teeth, which is good. This triangle, if you look at this as a triangle, that arm almost fits within the triangle, so that's good. Same over here. So there's a lot of places that match up, and I think we're good. So I'll turn that off for now. All right. The next thing that I would do is, before I get into, say, lighting, or trying to add atmosphere or something like that, which now looking at it, because she's upside down, she's lit from the ground, so I'm going to have to create a light from the ground shooting upwards. That's something I didn't think about before. So anyway, yeah. We should have done horror light if I had this in mind ahead of time, which I did not. So I'm just kind of winging it and going with the flow right now. Let's see. At this point, I think what I would do is to match her in the scene and do any kind of color grading right now. So before I go any further, so take care of things like this green, a little bit of a green tinge in the hair, and then also making her look more like a vampire because she has no warm blood underneath her skin. So we're going to have to cool her off a little bit. So let's get started with that. I'm going to think that going to say we probably want to first start off with actually, to take care of the green. You could go the route of like creating like a hue and saturation layer and just choosing the green and then desaturating it and all that. I'm going to try to do it all in one layer, and I'm going to choose a selective color adjustment layer. We want this to only affect the layer beneath it, not the background. So a couple different ways you can do that is if you come in between the layers here and then hold down Alt, you see the arrow pops up. If you click it, now this layer is basically, with this little arrow, is attached to this layer. So whatever you do selectively on the color is only going to affect her layer, not the background layer. The other way, I'm going to undo that. So the other way to attach this layer to the bottom layer is if you have your properties window open over here off to the side, like I do. When this is selected, this layer, you have the ability to hit this little arrow right there. That basically does the same thing, just it makes this layer attached to the one beneath it. So now I'm going to just attack just right off the bat with the green. So I'm going to go to greens. And some of that green too, by the way, I think is probably also going to show up in the cyans. So just note we're going to have to work on the cyans as well. So once the green is selected, if you just to see if this layer actually does anything at all, if you just grab the black and just make it go up and down, you barely see some changing going on in the green, but it is changing. So I'll leave it at 0. Come in here and change the cyan to low. And all you're doing is moving it around, just trying to decide how to make it look better. Go to cyan. Just changing ever so slightly, but not a lot. So maybe it's in the yellow. Looks like it's more in the yellow. So and we may do this in two different we may do this in two different takes. So basically, color adjust just the hair and take care of any kind of like green spill, and then go back and do the other color adjustments on her. Okay. I don't think here's anything in the magentas. Blue. Nothing in the blue. Whites. Not really affected much on the hair. Neutrals. So I'm going to tone it down a little. And then the blacks. Just looking at the hair. Okay, maybe go back to the neutrals and do some adjustments. Okay, alright. Once I'm satisfied with the hair there, I'm going to choose the mask right here, and I'm going to hit Control I, which inverts it to black, so it all goes away. And if you hit B on the keyboard, scale it up some, make the hard edge around, I don't know, 70% or so. You can increase the opacity, flow's alright, and we're going to paint white. So I'm just painting away, or not away, I'm revealing the coloration changes that we made. I'm kind of only painting on the outside. So I'm trying to get all that green out of there. We're going to do something else here in a second, so bear with me. Okay, once that is done, the next thing would be to create a hue saturation layer, and then also again clamp it down to the layer beneath it. So click this little button right here, or hover over in between this and hit the Alt, and then when you see the arrow, click it. Now go to the greens, and then you can desaturate it. You can kind of, if you look right here, you'll see if we go all the way to saturate, it glows. So that's, you can see it glowing here and there as well. So if we just kind of desaturate that, and then you can even grab the lightness. See, if you go up, you can go up brighter on the edges, but we want to darken it. And then we may also have to choose, like I said, we may have to choose a cyan or the yellows. So I think there's even a lot of that green in the yellow. So we want to desaturate it, and actually we could probably change the hue a little bit, something closer to the hair color, but then desaturate it, and then also darken it some. And then again, we can click on the mask, Control I to invert it. Brush tool's already selected, painting white, and then just paint away on these edges here. I'm going to raise my opacity and flow. Okay. All right. So now, as far as these layers go, these adjustment layers, these are only locked into her hair because we have it masked. Okay. So the next thing to do is I want to do overall coloration on her. And we may try to get creative with how we select certain areas and change colors. So first thing I'm going to say we need to do is start with the major color, the main color, the base color that we want her to appear in, and we'll probably have to go back and like mask in just for the skin, not necessarily the outfit. So start on that. So we're going to go to selective color again. We're going to Alt click right there to lock it into her layer, and then over here we're going to start with the reds and start moving this around. So we want to go a little cooler, so we're going towards the right, and then we let it go there. Go the magenta, and again, kind of, it's gonna get, I don't know, I think we're gonna go a little bit to the left, not much, it's -9%. Yellow, we don't want to go yellow, we want to go negative. So look at her skin, so it's sort of desaturating to some degree. This one going up to like -22. Black, this is just try to use your eyes. I'm at +25 on that. Yellows, so it's just a matter of taking the slider and moving it and trying to figure out what looks best. So about 5% on that one. -2. And then Negative 57 on yellow. And then negative 20 on that, on the blacks. Alright, green. I don't even know if there's green here, so I don't see it. So it wouldn't matter what you did on this one, you're not going to see anything. That's a quick way to look and see if green's going to actually, if anything is going to be affected. If you just grab the black and you move it from one side to the other and you don't see any changes, then nothing you do up here is going to change. So don't worry about that. Let's go to cyans. Again, check to see if there's anything that changes. Nothing is changing, so don't worry about changing anything there. Blues, check it. Not seeing any changes there either. Magentas. Her dress is about it. So I'm going to leave it there. Whites. Okay. Now, basically, the only thing changing here is her forehead. The really bright areas. So if I'm going to be putting some light beneath her, shooting upwards, I'm going to keep it as a white light, a harsh light. So I'm just looking at her forehead here. I don't think I'm going to put any color into those whites. Neutrals, just gauge with your eye. Start at the top, go right or left, and we're looking to change just the skin, so don't worry about the clothing right now. So we don't want it warm, we want it cold, but we don't want to push it too far. Everything balanced. So it's having a little bit more green tinge really, but I want to cool it down. So God, it's horrible trying to work at something when you're working upside down. So if I go about right, let's see if I go extreme. That's extreme. I don't want to go that far. So maybe about right there, -8. Black. So this is where I'd probably be thinking about the lighting. I know we want to show her, but at the same time we want it to be realistic. So I'll keep it about there. Now we choose blacks. Again, start at the top and just sort of work your way around to what looks good. I feel like right about right there looks pretty good. Now I know what you're saying. Golly, she's really dark and background's dark and her hair's being lost in the background. Yeah, I get it. That's what's happening. We're going to add some atmospherics to try to separate her from the background, so then her hair will show back up. Okay, so we did those color adjustments so that we can just selectively choose that to affect to her skin. Kind of like how it even darkened her eyes up, which is kind of cool. So I would think that would be more natural. So like a vampire is a natural thing, right? So if we select the mask and then we hit Control I, and then we paint in just the areas of the skin. So choose brush, fairly hard edge, something around 90%. I'm just going to go ahead and turn my flow and my opacity all the way up to 100%, and then start painting over the skin. Don't worry if you're not painting on the background, you're just painting on her. So Don't worry if it looks like it does what you're doing. So go around, be careful to paint just on the skin. Okay. Increase my brush size so I can get this done quickly. I'm gonna paint the lips. But think about this for a second here. I think I'm going to leave the mouth red, sort of, and not change the color of it. Because I feel like red sort of, can stand for danger, right? I'm going to hit X on the keyboard, which will be painting black, which means taking away the mask. So making sure that this area stays colorful. Okay. And back to B on the keyboard. Make sure I'm painting white to show through. Make sure this area of the hand is cool. Okay. Ear. Elbow. Alright. Okay, so honestly I think we could do better. I think we can do better at the coloration. But what I may end up doing is actually adding a color treatment to the whole image. So adding more blues, cooler tones. Yeah. Alright. So, what next? Let's see. Just trying to think here. What do I want to do next? We could try duplicating this layer and see if it actually adds more to it. So I'm gonna hit Control J, so you can actually add a duplicate adjustment layer. But as you see, like we did a Control J, we made a duplicate of it, but it's lost its connection to the layer beneath it, so we need to reestablish that. So if you hit the Alt key and then click right between those layers, now it's locked back to that one. So this one is a lot more blue, purple, sort of. We could try changing the layer blending mode and see if that gives us something that's a little more fitting. Lighter color, let me see what that does. It just adds just a little bit more coolness to the overall brightness areas of the skin. If I do another Control J, copy of it, and then Alt click, and change the way its blending mode goes. And then change the opacity to 0 and then start cranking it up a little bit. Something about there, I think. So this one's on hard light. So it's going to like sort of darken, but also darken the color as well in the darker areas of the shadows, which is kind of what I wanted. So it's kind of weird to think about, but I'm trying to go from I'm trying to think of like going from a light color to what the base color is supposed to be, and then when you get into darker shadows, then it's going to be even more that color, but just darker, contrasty. So I think that's more of around where I'm imagining. Another thing that we can do to kind of increase sort of realism or detail is we could go find. It'd be kind of a disgusting find if you ask me, but we could go find do some Google searches for like veins or like lightning, people who've been struck by lightning, and then show like pictures of their skin, and sometimes you have this veiny kind of scarring and whatnot. And we can, if we use that, we can actually overlay it onto like some of these areas on our chest area and sort of and on our arms, and sort of blend that in ever so slightly, and so you'd see a lot more sort of like vein detail right under the skin. So if you wanted to go that, disgusting route of looking for those photos online, that's one thing you can do. And I may do it at some point, but I think for right now I'm just going to keep trying to finesse her into the scene. I'm not worried about coloring her fully just yet as far as her body goes. So I think the next thing I want to do is I could probably go ahead and just like desaturate some of her hair, so it's just really more of a tone than it is a color. So let's do that. Let's create another selective color adjustment layer. Alt click right there in between the lines to make it just attached to her layer. And then I think if I'm just going to be looking at her hair, so I'm kind of wanting to look at it and sort of desaturate it. Also maybe even brighten it up a little bit more. So doing this, you can selectively make like the highlights pop a little bit more. So if you go through each, because there's different colors within the hair, so you could affect things to make them look a little bit more popped. Again, I'm just looking in the hair, nowhere else on the image. It's not really doing anything to the hair. Again, I'm trying to get to a point of sort of desaturating it. There'll be a little bit of color, but not a lot. and also trying to, like, I don't know, trying to match it to where there'll be some detail that matches, like brings your eye more visual stimulus in that area. Uh, so okay, somewhere around there. Now we just want to affect the hair. So again, we got to select the mask, Control I to invert it. Zoom in here on the hair. B on the keyboard changes it to a brush, and then I'm going to soften my selection here a little bit, maybe 70 something percent. Leave the opacity and the flow to 100%. Painting white because we want to reveal, and come in here and sort of paint around the edges of the hair here. And there's a little bit of hair here too, remember? Okay, make it a little bit bigger so I can paint more. Okay. I'm going to soften my brush a little bit more, quite a bit actually. I'm going to go all the way to 0 and turn down the opacity to like 20% maybe. And then I'm just going to go around these areas that are close to her skin. Paint a couple times. Click, 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 click. One more for good measure. And it just sort of helps to sort of blend some of that color transition. Alright. So, again, she's really dark. We need to try to separate her a little bit from the background. And we will mess with some coloration more towards the end for an overall image color treatment. Okay, so separation and adding atmospherics. Choosing the right atmospherics instead of just haphazardly, hey, I got these cool cloud brushes, I'm just going to put them everywhere. No, no. You need to try to be very I'm not being mean, I'm just saying you need to try to match the correct atmospherics with the environment. This looks like a very damp, moist place, so it's probably going to have more of a haze effect than, say, smoke, right? It's not outside. There's not going to be these billowing smoke effects. So unless you wanted that for some reason, like coming out of a genie bottle or something like that, but this is a vampire. So the other thing is we're going to be shooting light upwards, so the mist in certain areas are going to be really, really noticeable. So we can't. I don't want to put like too much fog elements, I think, into it. Now, as I evolve and start getting in there and start doing it, I may actually think, hey, you know what? It'll look better if I put some fog stuff going on. So, maybe. The main thing is I want balance, and I don't want to take away from her, but I do need to separate her a little bit from the background. So in order to do that, I need to create some distance between her and the background. And the way to do that is, so here's her layer here. I'm going to go ahead and double click on that and put Queen. Enter. So there's a queen, here's our background. We need to create something behind, not on top, but behind her, right? So the lighting, okay, we need to sample the color of the most highest highlight point of her forehead here, which is going to be the brightest. Because if you just, I mean, if you looked at a threshold here, these are the most highlight areas, so you can see where the brightest points are. And if you grab the tool over here and kind of slide it to almost nothing, you can see these are the most hottest points. So this is where you want to select your color from, because that's going to be the color temperature and the right to match the highlights. So your light source needs to match that, right? So I'm going to delete this now. Delete that. So in order to do that, we can't just select her layer and then, click on the color tool over here, and this pops up, and then you have your eyedropper and you just click and select. Because what happens is, if we just click and select, it's going to select the color that's current on this layer, which is without all of these, right? And that's not the color light that we've created. We have all these adjustment layers now. So the way to do this is we have to make a collapse copy, and we just need it for just selecting the color. We can throw it away afterwards. So with this layer selected, if we hit shift and then click on the top layer of all the coloration changes that we did, and then hit control J, duplicated all of them, and then control E to merge them all. So now with this layer selected, we can go over here, click our little square for the color, and when you do that, this dialog pops up, but you also have a little eyedropper. Select somewhere right in here on the color. See, it's right here. It's not all the way at the top pure white. We have a little bit of color into it, right? So we selected that area, we hit OK. But now we can delete that layer. We don't need it anymore. So I'm going to hit delete. We need to produce some light behind her, so we select this the bottom layer, and then if we go up to adjustment and then do solid color, the very last color that we chose is going to be the color that shows up. So you just hit OK, and now we need to select the mask and then hit control I to make it disappear. Your mask is still selected, so now we can go to our favorite brushes. So select brush. We can go as low as like 10%, leave the flow at 100. Choose the brush drop down arrow. I already have some brushes that I purchased from Kelvin Designs, which, by the way, he makes some pretty awesome brushes. So I could drop a link, or you can just look them up on YouTube and Google. Kelvin, Kelvin, Kelvin Designs, and his stuff is pretty awesome. See, we are looking at directional lighting brushes at the moment. This is going to be tricky because we'll probably have to turn it upside down. Let's see. What is that? I'm going to make it the largest that I can. And then click 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. And I think we might be able to rotate this. So I'm on my move tool. Hit Control T. And then I'm just going to flip it actually vertical. And I'm not sure I like it yet. I'm going to scale it a little bit here. If you hit shift on the keyboard, you can drag independently. I like some of the effects that I'm getting, but I don't like the actual shape. I feel like we're going with a very straight. We have a lot of straight lines. We have a lot of triangles and hard edges, and I don't think adding this circular sort of design in it is gonna look good. I think we really need more of a straight lines. So, we could, in a way. I don't know if this will work. I'll try it. Go to filter, blur, and then motion blur. Make it up and down, so 90 degrees, and then crank up the distance a lot, and then hit OK. Now that could work, maybe. But we need to edit a little bit more. I think the direction needs to be adjusted. So Control I, and let's do skew. Or let me think about this for a second. Maybe perspective. Something like that, maybe. And I may want to blend and scale, and then shift select upwards, move it over some, and hit enter. We'll look at it for a minute. So I like it and I don't like it. So I'm going to use this as like a base. I'm going to tone it down. A little bit. And then actually, you know what? I'm going to leave it all the way cranked up to 100%. Then I'm going to put it in its own group. So I'm going to hit Control G, just with this one layer selected. I'm going to hit Control G, okay, and then collapse it down where you just see the group. I'm going to double click on that and call it haze. And then I'm going to create a mask. Okay, so I'm going to create a negative mask. So I'm going to hit Alt and then click. So now it goes away completely. Again, we're going to choose our brushes, but this time we're going to choose some different brushes. We're going to try to use maybe some fog brushes and see if we can't sort of finesse it in a little bit. So let me try to find some fog brushes. There's some dust. That could sort of work. So let me bump it all the way up to that, and then if you want to start the effect, just click click away, click one time and stay right where you're at. Click once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you can see what it's starting to look like, but that's like an explosion, dust and particles, and I don't really like that. So Control Z, Control Z, 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 Z. Now we're gone. All right, back to square one. So those are not going to work. Shades and beams. We really need a fog. Light rays. Directional light. Directional. Directional light rays. No. Really need fog. So I have some fog brushes, but I'm going to have to load them. So that's what I'm going to do. Go to the little icon up here at the top. Go to import brushes. Find fog brushes. I got them somewhere. It's fantasy brushes. Hair. Lighting magic. Hair brushes. A lot of hair brushes. Crystals. Fire fractals. Kelvin Designs. That's the one that I was using. Let's see what else we got. Got brushes right here. Do I have any more? Oh, there's foggy landscapes. I don't want that one. There is horror Photoshop brushes. Not sure what that is exactly. Beams, dust, misty lands, smoke fog. Here we go. And HD at that. Smoke fog, and then there's smoke fog trails. I'm going to do smoke fog. And then after it loads right here at the bottom, you drop down. This looks like it's sometimes when people make brushes, it's actually an image that they just tweaked. And so I'm going to make this as big as I can make it. And then I'm just going to go right here on the bottom and stay in one position and click, 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 click. So we have a little bit of low line fog there. But that doesn't really give us our light beams, right? So Control Z till it's gone. And then keep looking for like something like this may work better. So I want to hit it one time, 2 times, 3 times. Once over here, here, up a little bit here, here, and here. Then you just dabbing a little bit here and there and trying to make it a little bigger. And it's going to be brighter towards the bottom, so you got to keep kind of building up the base. Right? Because it's brighter at the bottom and shooting upwards. So just clicking and moving the brush a little bit to sort of keep it having some variation, and that's causing a pretty good amount of separation between her and the background. Now, I don't like just leaving things like they are, so I feel like we can add a little more depth here. Instead of just leaving these like they are, one thing that we can do is create some maybe negative spaces with or negative lines within the haze. So this, we may use a directional ray, light ray, possibly. Let's see if I can find one that looks more like I need it. There's one in here that's sort of long and just rectangular, and I think that's probably going to be what works. Just got to find it. Nope, 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 no, no. Wish there was a better way to visually see these. I think there is. I don't know everything. Look it up on YouTube. See, looking for the one long edge line. I just saw it not too long ago. Where is it? No. Good grief. Nope. Nope. Well, my goodness. It's none of those. Nope. Nope. No. I'm wondering if it's not in this one above here. Yeah. So this may work. I think what I need to do is put it on a separate layer though. So I'm going to create a new adjustment layer. Oh, sorry, that was a mask. Edit undo. Create a new solid color. I'm going to change this to completely black. I think, yeah. And then use the mask. Actually, sorry. Go back. Double click on the color. Choose white. Let me think about that for a second. What am I trying to do? I'll try this and see. Control I. And then paint. Make this as large as we can. Like click and click. Something like that. Now, take the move tool. I want to flip it. It's stronger at the bottom, so I need to flip it. And then also rotate it like so. scale it up a little bit so the brightness needs to sort of match that. Hit OK. I need to fade in these corners because we had to rotate it. So hit B on the keyboard and then choose a round brush, soft round brush. Yeah, bring it down to small size. Flow around 37%, opacity around 18, and I'm going to be painting black to hide, so X on the keyboard to change colors, and then click on that hard edge and just sort of paint that edge away, because that's a little too harsh. Okay, do the other side here. Okay, there we go. Make sure it's good and painted out. Alright, now we should be able to use this same layer to hide some of the, because that's where I was headed with this, but I thought it looked really cool with this stronger light in the center. Now we could alter this one a little bit and kind of tone it down just a tad, but still there. But figure we can also use the same layer to hide some of the light beams. So if we just do Control J, and then I think if we change the blending mode to something else, I'm going to turn the opacity all the way up to 100% so we can see it better. But if we select our blending layer and then select it again and just use our keys on the keyboard, up and down arrows, we can change blending modes. And if we just do this, might be able to find one that has a negative effect, like that will take away something like that difference maybe. When we find it, we want to move it, so select the move tool, Control T, and then I'm going to make them skinny because I want these beams to be skinny, and then hit Shift click and you can make the beams a little bit smaller and then put them here and there. So there's one. I'm going to Control J again, Control T, move it over, maybe make it a little bit wider. Alright, and then maybe move it up even. No, move it back down. Hit enter on that one. Control J again, Control T, move it over here somewhere, maybe kind of offset it some where it's not even with the other one, so it's not exactly flipped over exactly. And then I think three variations probably would work fine. So we need to try to figure out how to make it to where it creates more of a darker influence on the smoke. So I'm going to select the layer again and finish going down. There we go. We found it. Subtract. So take the opacity and play with it a little bit. Kind of vary it a little. We don't want to make it too overpowered. So we're at subtract on the layer blending mode. So we need to select the one beneath it and go to subtract. And then change the opacity. Since it's closer to the harsh part of the light, this one probably needs to be a bit more abrupt. So darker edge, the lines need to be a little bit darker. and then choose this one beneath it, also subtract, and then change the opacity on that one to something lighter, so like maybe somewhere around there. Maybe I want to go back to this top one and probably decrease it a little bit more. Go back to this one. No, that one, the main one, and decrease it a little bit more. And I'm just trying to subdue it in a little bit. I don't like where it's right on this line right here, because it kind of looks more like that line is showing up more. So I'm going to hit Control T and hit Shift and just kind of scale it out a little bit. Hit Enter and then push it back over some with I'm using the right arrow or left arrow on the keyboard. So I'm just kind of pushing it over a little bit, somewhere around there maybe. So we've added a little bit of variation to our light beams. So we've got some negative areas, like there's something obstructing the light, like say it's a metal grating or something beneath it. Okay, I feel like we're getting where we need to be as far as a little bit of separation. So another thing that you can do to kind of give these a little bit more variation, or not variation, you can hit the feather. You can actually blur it out a little bit more and then come back and raise the opacity some. Maybe choose that first one here, but also turn the opacity up, but then feather it. Turn the opacity a little more, something like that. Okay. So, all right. I always like going back and tweaking things, but I think we can move on now. I'm going to add a little bit of atmospherics in front of her, but not a lot, because I don't want to cover up too much, but she needs to feel like she's in the scene. So one way to kind of do this is take our atmospheric layers and choose the bottom layer and hit Shift Select on the top layer. Hit Control J to make a duplicate, and then we can move all of these layers together in, above everything else. Actually, I'm going to group it. So while they're selected, I'm going to hit Control G on the keyboard, and then I'm going to double click on this group and say haze, and then foreground, because I'm going to put it on top of everything. So I'm going to click on it and drag it all the way to the top. Okay, now see how it's overlaying on her. We don't want it to be as strong though. So turn it back, then start bringing it back slowly. So maybe somewhere about there, I feel like, so 50%. But then I'm going to create a mask. I'm not going to hit Alt. I'm just going to create a mask and choose B on the keyboard. Sorry, B on the keyboard. Scale it just a tad, not a lot, and just a little bit. Basically, I'm trying to stay smaller than her jaw area, like the shadowing underneath. And then I'm going to make the hardness probably around 70 something percent, painting black to hide. So we have this layer, this haze on top of everything, but from the light coming shining upwards, anything that is blocking the light is going to shadow the haze, or not really, show up. So right underneath the face and the jaw downwards, we're going to paint it away. And then also right underneath her arm here. Just sort of paint downwards, or upwards, sorry. Brain twist. And then also from here up. So a little bit underneath the nose as well. Remember, it's the details, right? And that looks pretty good. So I think at this point, what else do we need to do? So there's one thing I like to do. So when you're, especially when you're blending a subject into a background, if I took this photo, everything together, like the background and her, if I took this photo together with my camera in one shot, there's going to be sort of like, if you look at the edge of a person, like really zoom in at the edge of a person, a subject with the background, how do I say this? There's a little bit of the background sort of, and the person has sort of a soft edge like around them. So when you do a cutout, your cutout's going to be pretty hard edged, and it's going to look fake. So once I've gotten to this point in my composite where I feel like I've got the atmospherics right, I feel like I've got the separation from her in the background, and sort of coloration on her, at this point, to finesse her further into the image, this is my next step. So to blend her better with the background, I need to sort of take both the background and her layer, combine them into one image, and then do an inverted mask, and but blur it. So, and then I have to selectively paint that blur back in on the edges of her. This little tip sort of helps sort of tie everything in together into one image. So to do this, we need to take all of our layers from our background to what we've done. So if you hit choose one layer and then hit shift and go to the other end and hit click it, all of them get selected. And then you do control J, that makes a duplicate of everything, and then control E merges everything down into one layer. Now, to do this correctly, what I like to do is I like to zoom in a little bit so I can see the edges, and then I see some areas I need to fix, like around here and stuff, but that's okay. I can fix that later. But for right now, like what I need to do is I need to blur it. So I want to go to filter, blur. I want to do a Gaussian blur, and that's way too much. What I'm looking at is I'm looking at the edges between her and the background, and when it starts to look like what I envision an actual photo's edge starting to look like, that's when I know I'm good. So like I'm looking at this layer, this area right here, and this area right here. This is how, like, if you really zoomed in on an image that you took, this is pretty much how your edges would almost start to look like. As far as like how they would look if it's looking at a subject with the background blended together into one image, like with your camera, your edges do have this sort of spillover between the two objects, right? The foreground and the background, whether it be color or noise, or whatever. So find that sort of point where I'm at right now and hit OK. And the next thing to do is create a inverted mask for this layer. So we're going to do Alt, click, so we create a black mask. Now, if we choose brush and sort of make it a little small, but not too small. Actually, I'll make it no, I'm going to leave it there. So about this size, brush, hit X on the keyboard to change it to white. And then if that doesn't happen, you just click here and then click and drag all the way to the top and hit OK. Next thing to do is we want to make this as soft as possible, so 0% on the hardness. The other thing is we want to bring the opacity down to like maybe 15%. 37% flow is fine. And then start to come in here and just sort of paint and move fast, because we don't want it to even the hair, just kind of go over certain areas and certain parts, but do it fast. Don't stay in one area too long. For instance, I'm probably going to knock this down to like 10% and just paint away these edges. And then come back over here to the skin. Now I did all this area right here, but if I come over here, you can start to see how it blends. It's a very subtle thing. You don't want to do too much. The darker areas you can actually do more, like where there's not like much detail and you can't really see as well. So click and paint, click and paint, click and paint. So I may come back in a little bit and also kind of clean up some areas that I see that I've got. But that's starting to look alright. Like I said, I need to come back in here and clean up these edges. And this is a very subtle thing again. don't want to do it too much, too hard. But you can get away with more if it's a dark area. Because you're kind of blending the noise from the two images together more in the dark areas anyway. There's going to be more separation in the brighter points. If you had a bright subject and a bright background. So just be mindful. Little goes a long way. Okay, I gotta come back and fix some of these little areas that I see here and there. But that just sort of helps blend the image in, and it's so subtle. I mean, I could turn off on and off this layer, and you'll barely see it, but it's there. And like I said, it just helps to blend them together more. So, we can save often. Okay. So, I'll probably end up darkening her dress a little bit more and desaturating a little bit of that red. So yeah, getting close, I feel like, to the finish line. That's always fun. Alright, I'm going to pause for a second. Alright, at this point I think the thing we can do from here on is just basically do a little bit more color grading and an overall color grading, but also little things like darkening areas and just finishing up basically. So from here, what I think I want to do is let's see, make a duplicate of everything. Control J, Control E, merge into one layer, and then I'm gonna do a let's see, I think I'm gonna do a gradient and definitely change that to something else. Blues maybe. Maybe here. Hit OK. Oops. Go back into that. Double click. And we want to make it, let's see. We're going to reverse it. So negative 90. Negative 90. And then we can play with the scale a little bit and probably somewhere around there. Hit OK. And we're just going to affect the layer beneath it because I want to see what so I'm going to hit Alt and then click so it's linked to the one beneath it. And we're going to change to blending mode. So again, if you just click the blending mode and click it again, you can just hit the arrows on the keyboard to go through it. kind of cool. Huh. It's on fire. So I really like this crushed look right there. I wonder if I decrease the opacity, if that starts to look pretty awesome. I think it's too much though. I'm losing like the mouth and detail in that area. If I go too dark, I'm gonna leave it at almost 50% and just keep going up my selections here. So maybe I kind of like lighter color, but why do I like it? It opens up everything and makes it a little bit brighter in the background. But I like this overlay better too. So overlay, if I go up on it, so it looks better if I go really high, somewhere like that. But I think I really need to like brighten up certain areas. And I'm probably gonna darken that this whole red part of the dress, maybe even the belly area. Take away some of those design elements because I don't want it to draw the eye upwards too much, which naturally, you know, your eye kind of wants to go up anyway. But her face is down here. So overall, I think the next thing to do is I could do a blend if and see if that changes anything. If I double click on just the blank area of the layer here, you get this pop up. And if you just click on this little guy right here and drag over, you can see that the effect of that layer starts to go away from the bright areas. I kind of want it to remain on the bright areas, but start to take away from some of the black maybe. And the thing is, if you hit, I think it's Alt. Yeah, if you hit Alt, you can break apart these little guys. And you can start to pull it away from the darks, which kind of looks kind of cool. Right there. I may actually break apart the white. Kind of go out a little bit. That way it sort of crushes in that effect of the blue. It kind of crushes it in within a certain area of the white to grayscale. So you're kind of like keeping it to only affect a certain area of the midtones, and then a small area of a small area of the whites to the midtones. Yeah. And so we get this effect. So we hit OK on that. Now if we turn it on and off, this is what we're looking at. Which is kind of neat. Kind of crushing. So I'm going to keep that, but I want to like I said, I want to kind of darken these areas right here and get rid of this detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a duplicate of everything. Again, Control J, Control E, flatten and merge everything, and then I'll create another adjustment layer. You'll notice I create a lot of adjustment layers, and there is a reason for that. Is because if you do anything to any layer, you can undo so many times, but you can't keep hitting undo. Depends on how many times you have it selected, or in your preferences. And which you don't want it to be a whole lot because it's going to make the file sizes really really big, but and take up a lot of your RAM. And anyway, so if you do things in a non-destructive manner, you can always go back and tweak and change things. That's basically the reason why I do a lot of adjustment layers. So yeah, we're going to, I want to basically completely desaturate the whole layer. So I'm going to do hue saturation, make sure it's linked to the layer beneath it. So you can hit Alt and then find that in between line, click it, and then desaturate it. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of contrast maybe and darken it. So I'm going to create another adjustment layer. Go to actually I'm going to go to curves and make sure it's linked to the layer beneath it, and sort of just darken things down a good bit. Okay, and then I'm going to merge these together. So I'm going to hit Shift, select those three layers, Control E, so merge them, and then choose the blending mode to something like multiply. Yeah, multiply. And then I'm going to do a negative fill. So I'm going to do Alt, click on the mask, and choose my brush. Make sure it's pretty big, bigger than that, and make sure it's completely all the way to 0 on the hardness, so it's real soft. The opacity, I'm going to start at 10%, leave it at flow at 37. Make sure I'm painting white to reveal, and I'm just going to kind of go back and forth in this area right here. Click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. And kind of curve the painting here. Go back of the top here, click and drag, paint. Paint downwards just a little. Maybe make the brush a little smaller. Kind of let that darkness creep down towards the center of her body. It also kind of mutes the background a little bit more too. Something like that. Kind of paint a couple more times across the top. Almost blackening it out. Okay. Next, I want to do another copy of everything. So Shift, select the bottom, Control J, Control E to flatten. And then, before I do anything else, I'm going to go back to save. File, save. So we've saved it. Now we want to, we have a flattened copy. So I'm going to do, we'll do a couple different things. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a duplicate of this one. So Control J. We'll turn this one off, select this one beneath it. I'm going to do I'm going to make sure that everything is cropped to this square. So I'm going to image, crop, select off of it, then go to filter, camera raw. Okay, and we're just going to make this pop a little bit more. So come down here to calibration. This is one tool that a lot of people don't use for whatever reason. Maybe they don't know it's there. If you click and drag over, you'll see that you get basically a more saturated blue. So I'm not trying to go too far over, just a little bit. It also kind of helps if you drag the green over as well. So I'm not going to drag it over as far either. And then the red, again, we don't want it to be too red, just because she's supposed to be cool in nature. There is a new technique here, and this is the beta version of Photoshop. And usually in beta versions, you get some new features within it. And this is one, and I thought, holy crap, this has been on my wish list for 4 years maybe. So if you click on lens blur and hit apply, okay, what happens is it looks and analyzes the background and separates the person from the subject in front to the background, and you get this. And this is amazing. This does a really good job of blurring the background. Now if you're using like a f 1.4 or something like that, you might get something that looks like this. I don't want to go that far, so I want to try to keep things natural looking as much as possible. And she's not, like based on how I shot things, she wouldn't be that far away from the background. And this is another thing also. She's real, I took a picture of her, but the background is not real, right? It's made in Midjourney. So knowing that, if you use this effect where it slightly gives you a little bit of that camera depth, you're blurring the background and basically taking that sort of digital edge off of the fake, the fakeness of it. So you're kind of adding a little bit of more realism basically to your shot. So anyway, I'm only going with a very low 7% blur. She looks, it looks pretty awesome right now as is. The next thing to do is I'm going to go to optics, maybe add a little vignette just to crush it a little bit more. And then I'm not going to mess with distortion or anything like that. Detail, I might actually raise the sharpening a little. Not going to do any more color grading. I feel like I'm already kind of somewhat there. Effects, you get out a little more texture. That just sharpens things a little bit. Don't want to go too much on that. Clarity, if you can crank it all the way up if you wanted to. It could add to the effect, I guess. So I'll leave it to about 18% maybe. You have dehaze, which if you mess with it, you can either increase the amount of haze or decrease the amount of haze that it currently has. One of the effects I like that it does though is if you start to decrease it, or not decrease the haze but actually add to it, you can add a little bit of lighting back to like some of the areas that got a little too dark. I'm not going to add grain because this is one thing I'm going to add after the fact on a different program because it's much better. Color, you don't have to really mess with that too much unless you want to mess with the vibrance. Vibrance doesn't necessarily affect skin tones on normal people, but vampires, it's going to definitely affect a little bit. So I'm just going to leave that where it's at. Tint, you can play with that a little bit if you want to. See what you can do. I don't like things on the green side, so I'm going to leave it close to natural. Now this is your warmth and cooling on your color temperature here. You could play with it and see what you like. I still think going back to a cooler temperature is where I want to be. So somewhere maybe around there. That even may be too much. I don't know. I think it looks alright. Light. I'm not really I don't really think I'm going to mess with this too much. Shadows, I'm going to see what happens if I pull it backwards. I like how it does it. It just concentrates it on her a little bit. If I pull the shadows down, but I don't know. Kind of like it where it was, just normal. Highlights, I could drop them or make them a little brighter. Somewhere there, and then hit OK. And then we have, it's working. Then we have this. Okay. The next thing that I want to do though is I'm going to turn this layer I'm on above it. Click it. And then I'm going to rename it grain. And to get grain, I'm going to choose filter, and this is one of my favorite things to use is the Nik collection. Nik software it used to be. I think Google owns it now. So go to, and I do own it. It's not hacked. I actually do own it. Go to Silver Effects Pro. This is, I use this for black and whites, but also for grain, for getting some grain. So I'm going to add some soft grain to it, and going to leave everything else like it is because this is kind of like a preset I made. I'm going to hit apply. Okay, here we are. Now we'll zoom in a little, and we can try going to luminosity. Choosing luminosity, it still keeps the grain effect there. You can see it. There's on, or I'm sorry, off, on, off, on. So it kind of gives it a natural like film look, or a natural film grain. So we could leave it there if we wanted to. I think what I will do though is I'm going to do a blend if, because most times when you do grain, it does kind of fade away from the highlights, but it may not look right when we do this. So I'm going to fade it. So I'm going to do the Alt key and then click and sort of drag outwards. And that's looking pretty good. I think I'm going to actually pull it too from the darks maybe. looking at it. So maybe somewhere there. Pull this one out a little bit more. Yeah, somewhere around there. Then hit OK. I'm looking at how the grain affects in the highlights here and how it goes over into the darks. That's what I was looking at to make sure I was alright. So at this point, there's a couple things you could do to kind of like make sure that you're good. Is like, if still it's upside down, it's really hard to like look at this thing but and see it correctly. But if you zoom out on your screen, you can kind of get the idea of like what this is going to look like on a cell phone. And if you think it's too dark, I would suggest making a version for social media, making a version for Instagram, making a version for Facebook, and tweak each one how you need to, so that they look the best as they can look on all these different platforms. So with this, I'd save a high res out so I can print it later or whatever, and then another one for social media. And usually, I think I learned this from Shutterfest. Whoever found this out did a pretty good job. So basically, save first. So save first, and then there it goes. Next thing to do is layer, flatten, image, yes, and then I'm going to save a large one out first for print. So I'm going to hit save a copy. Go back to my vampire. I'm just going to save it in here. So I'm going to call this vampire. Daggone, I can't spell. Vampire concept 01 LG for large, and hit save. Okay. And then this little dialog pops up, and you just hit save it all the way up to large file. Baseline standard's fine. Hit OK. Save that out. The next thing to do is go to image, go to image size, choose the 300 and go down to like 150. You could do 144. I like 150, just having a little bit more. And then change the inches to pixels and find out which one is the longest on the longest, and select that one and do 2048 and then hit OK. Now if you choose pixels first and change that, and then go back to let me think about that. If you change that first, I think never mind, scratch that. Just do this in this order first. Hit OK. And then fit on screen. If you do 100%, that's as big as it's going to get. But it's good for web, social media, whatever. Get a file. I always do the export, save for web legacy. This little pop-up comes up, and you can kind of tell like where things are. Choose JPEG. You could probably choose PNG, but just JPEG's fine. Maximum, progressive, quality 100%. Come down here and look. Right here is the most important thing. Your JPEG is at 1.314 megs, and that's good. You want it to be a fairly small file so that it easily pops up quickly on any computer or cell phone. So you just hit save, and I'm going to put it back into that folder. Vampire. And we're going to choose the same name. but we're going to change it to backspace SM stands for small or social media. Save. So there we go. That is how we created that. Kind of gives me the 80s vibes, really. Yeah, the 80s vibes. It's pretty much what I had in mind, sort of. But anyway, thanks for joining me on this. It was fun. You could, in this edit, you could have also like put more hair in there, Photoshop more hair, or even like grabbed the hair and kind of like pulled it down further, made it longer if you wanted to. I just felt like keeping it the way it is and trying to get through this edit because it's already like 3 hours long. So, hope you get something out of this. Appreciate it. There's going to be a lot more coming. Thanks.